Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome. It's nice to see you again. Nice to have you here. We have been sharing with you, true to the name of our channel and our Facebook page, Atlas in Formation, the formulation of the message of the Christ, the Christic message, the message of love, the message of truth, the message of balance, the message of all, and the message for all. And we have been working through this and sharing with you the process as it has been unfolding into this dimensionality where we are at presently, which is hell. We are at the lowest point of the lowest emanation, the furthest reaches of the great cosmic day. We have expanded, the universe has expanded as far as it can go in its present incarnation. The great in-breath has to now release and return to the stillness of the 0 point, of the great absolute nothing. And we feel the tension, we feel that tension inside of us, and we feel it in the world. We should welcome, a special welcome to all of our friends from Europe who are watching. This is a special time, and we will be rebroadcasting this at 8 o'clock. So if you're watching at 8 o'clock this evening, just know that this won't be a live broadcast. This will be a rebroadcast of what we broadcast at noon, so that our friends in Europe could tune in, because 8 o'clock is often too late for them. So in the future, we may do this, or we may reorient it so that we broadcast the night before like we did last night, and then rebroadcast that at noon the next day. We will see how this all rolls out and configures. Wednesday is a very special day for us because it's the middle of the week. Wednesday is, well, people refer to it as hump day and other things, but as the middle of the week, it's special for us symbolically because it's the golden middle. It's the great balance. It's the great fulcrum on which everything else revolves, around which everything revolves. It is the source, the center of the axis, the 0 point. And we wish to be able to confer this reality, this truth, upon humanity, so that during these times of great turbulence, of great trouble, of the great reset, of the great renewal, in which reconciliation will be an absolute hallmark. The ability to forgive, and forgive oneself, as well as forgive one's neighbor for all the wrongs, and forgive all who are asleep, and forgive all who have fallen, and forgive all who have fallen into error and defect and vice. Sin is a real phenomenon. The inverse of sin, though, is to be nice. Literally, you take the word sin and reverse it. Sin backwards is nice. And it is a simple fact that the universe cannot exist without the duality of opposites in this dance. And now is the time for us to wake up to that reality, to the reality of oneness, to the fact that the universe is an illusion, playing itself out in the great God mind of the absolute as perturbations of the infinite, omnipotent Tao. And it is our goal to impart this truth in such a way that the whole of humanity can be informed. Attlas information, to create the foundations of the next humanity on this planet, to create the ark, the archaeon, in which two things go into the ark: the best seeds with which to plant the new humanity, and also the knowledge, the essential knowledge that which humanity will require to establish itself in the next round of the game. And so when one considers these elements, one looks to the essence of being itself. And that essence of being is within all of us, within you, within me. And it is one essence and one being. Ultimately, it is one being in many, many, many countless infinite manifestations or expressions of that oneness. And it all comes down to being and not being, what I am and what I am not. And the opposed potentialities of expression and gravitation, radiation and attraction, expression and reception, positive and negative. But the reconciliation of those polarities is the union, is the 0 point, is the center, is the source. And the recognition that these two opposing potentialities are in this dance. And with this unfolds the universe as we know it. And it unfolds the universe in every which way. And that's why in the background, you see behind me this image of a child touching the ether, touching the very fabric of reality. And what explodes out before him is these interlocked spiral circles that create circles and circles upon circles and circles and circles, and really they're spheres. And that the fabric of reality is really this constant unfolding and spiraling inward and outward, this in-breath and out-breath on multiple levels, such that each individual within that reality experiences that moment by moment by moment. We all have to breathe. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And we know from mathematics, and we know from just our observations of science and frequency, the vibrations, the up and down, the peaks and valleys, and then the intertwined strands of DNA. Again, two intertwined potentialities which are in opposition but always connected. And it is at their peak expansion that they seek to reconnect with one another at the origin, at the 0 point. And that's why we have in the double helix of the DNA, we have the amino acid change which links the two of them together at all times, so that those two strands of DNA are always interconnected. And the connective tissue that binds two polarities, positive and negative, masculine and feminine, the connective tissue is their union, their reunion, the recognition that these are two potentials that exist on all levels of reality and that formulate the fabric of reality. And we can demonstrate that. It is possible, even though much has been said about what the limitations of the mind are. The reality is that the universe is the great all mind of God. It is the great singular consciousness which from which springs this whole multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional universe in the beingness of a single consciousness, and the individuated essences of that single consciousness, which explode out, which expand out in the great breath, in the great day, and then reaches a limit and then has to contract back. So our mind, if it is conscious, if it is awake, consciousness is a state of mind. And consciousness is an expansion of, or a state of mind. Our mind can be awake and aware and one with the great all mind of God. That is what it means to be conscious. And we can receive the limitless light of the cosmic Christ if we are open and if we have prepared our vehicle, our vessel, and chased the moneylenders out of the temple. Because our body is a temple, our mind is a temple, our heart is a temple. But as long as we continue in this duality, and even in the duality of separation of heart-mind, that mind and heart, the Christ enters into heart-mind, the union of heart and mind, of emotion and mind, under the guidance and governance of our own will, which is the will of our innermost being, our beingness. Because this three-dimensional reality in our physical body and our monkey mind is a lower expression and is an illusion. I do not exist. I and you do not exist. We are just characters in this MMORPG called reality. It doesn't exist. The universe is electric. And just as these infernal worlds are a virtual reality expression of the electric potentialities in opposition, positive, negative, and neutral forces, masculine, feminine, and union, so too are all of the infernal worlds of the lower fifth dimension, known as the lunar astral plane, or Klipoth, the dream world, in other words, where we go to dream, limbo, where we go and dream and we are batted around just by happenstance, just by sheer the forces of mechanical nature, and we're asleep. And when we sleep and are asleep and dream, we see how asleep we are. If we can awaken when we sleep, and we can awaken in the fifth dimension of the solar astral plane, we can travel the virtual universe, because there is no physicality. In fact, there is no physicality to the physical universe. All of that is just an illusion inside of the all spark, the all mind, the absolute. The whole of the universe is just perturbations in the absolute. And what are those perturbations? Those vibrations, that sound. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that word is sound, mantra, logos. That's the logos, the solar cosmic logos. And where does logos come from? It comes from E-O, 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 E-O. What's the E and what's the O? Well, let's look into it. Why don't we look into it and see what we can discover. So we begin again with creation. So we begin with the law of zero, absolute nothing, no laws, undefined, unknowable, the first mystery, the great mystery, the mystery of nothing, the mystery of all. And forgive us one moment while we just do a quick adjustment here. Okay, this should be all right. This should work. Hopefully this will work. We're trying to juggle a number of different things simultaneously here. We have to be able to control the StreamYard software, but then we also have the PowerPoint, and we also have the presenter view in PowerPoint. So it can get quite confusing. So what we may do is we may make this full screen. So we'll go away, and that way we won't confuse ourselves with all the different copies of the presentation that are happening live on our various screens. We have two screens going, and anyway. So here then, we begin with nothing. And but nothing is a point, is a 0 point. There's a point, an origin. And radiating out from this point is a positive something out of that nothing. The 0 unfolds the law of 1. This is 1 plus 1. Radiating out, unfolding out of nothing is something. The first mystery of something is how is one thing alone everything? Because we have something, but in order for something to be everything, this represented by the circle, it has to rotate around. But eventually, what happens is it crosses what we call this something is the radius of the circle, but eventually that radius has to cross what we call the equator or the midpoint. It has to return to its origin to be nothing again. So to complete the circle, it has to go this underneath this second hemisphere. So that something alone cannot, only one thing cannot be everything. It must radiate out its inverse. So we have +1 and -1. And now we have two opposing radii, which is a diameter. And one thing can be everything along a single continuum, a single dimension, this single line. Something and the inverse of something. And it's called a diameter because two radiations, two emanations in opposite directions create the poles, the two poles of a circle, which are diametrically opposed, meaning they're as far away from one another as possible. Something cannot get any further away from its inverse. And it's always equidistant. So everything exists diametrically in duality. Nothing exists outside of that duality. So, in other words, this is the law of two, the law of opposites, of polarity, of symmetry, of duality. From a scientific point of view, we may say polarized radiation creates diametric opposition. Radiation is the force of separation, of radiating outward from the source, from the 0 point. So that these, and creating the diametrically opposed, diametric opposition. So that the two poles of magnetism, the two poles of gender, masculine, feminine, and etc., all the duality that we know of in the universe is an expression of this simple, the law of two. But there's a problem with this model. And the problem with everything is that nothing is separate from everything. If this is everything, represented by the circumference of the circle, in other words, the limits of that one-dimensional reality, if this is everything, the origin is separate from everything along this continuum. But the origin cannot be separate from everything. So the solution is that we unfold the law of two twice more. Because each radii becomes a diameter of its own continuum. And we end up with 4 radii, 2 diameters. The origin is now united with everything. The matrix is valid and infinity defined, because now we've created this continuum whereby the origin is now connected with everything. Nothing is connected with everything through this continuum of what we can refer to for as the Holy Eight, or the twist, twist in everything. Put a twist in reality, and now the everything passes through the origin. But we note, of course, that each circle must obey the law of duality, the law of two. And we observe 3 laws of two. 1, 2, 3. The law of two has unfolded 3 times. So there's just a representation of the twist. So the law of 3 so this is the law of 3 then. The law of 3 having unfolded. We have positive, negative, and union of positive, negative. The mind will argue here that 1 plus 1, positive 1 plus negative 1 equals 0. Right? That's the origin. That's true, right? Because they cancel each other out. But 2 times 1 is 2. These 2 points are still points, as is the origin. And we have 1, 2, 3 points. And since 0 is a valid point along the continuum, 1, 2, 3, we have 3. So 1 and 2, these 2 points are actually positive 1 and negative 1, and they cancel each other out in the 0 point, but each are a legitimate valid point, which means there's 3 points. So here we have the interplay between the law of 2 and the law of 3. And of course, the mind wants to call everything that it sees before us here as two-dimensional. But we are simply using the circle to visualize the continuum between +1 and -1, which passes through 0. 3 points on a one-dimensional line, 2 equidistant radii create one diameter and the potential for all dimensions. So, in other words, to move from 0 to 1 to 2 to 1 to 2, we must pass through the origin. And that's where we get the sine cosine phenomenon. So this is what we get as we move from +1 to -1 and back again across the 0 point. And here is vibration, here is sound, here is mantra. The problem then with this one dimension is that there's no movement. And so how do we produce that sound? How do we get to that point? Duality alone cannot define everything. How do we arrive at what we just drew there? Well, two opposed radii can define only the diameter of the circle, not its circumference. So recall that we unfolded the law of 3 by unfolding the law of 2 3 times and creating the law of duality and polarity, but that each polarity has within it its opposite polarity. So in other words, in the positive circle, we have 1/4 negative potentiality. And in the negative circle, we have 1/4 positive potentiality. And we introduce the law of attraction or gravitation. Like attracts like. And this produces action. How this produces action is that this negative quadrant wants to be a part of its other, its self. It wants to return to itself. But it can't return to itself because in the continuum, it's blocked by all this positivity. It can't move through the positive because they're opposing radial forces. So opposites don't attract, opposites repel one another. Like attracts like through gravitation. Likewise, this positive wants to return to its quadrant, but it can't get through all this negativity. But the push is the force is there, and that force causes a rotation around the axis of the source of the 0 point. And so the force is not so much a push as it is a pull, because the 3 quarters negative is pulling down on its 1/4 up here, and the 3 quarters positive is pulling on the 1/4 positive. Attraction, in other words, the law of attraction is not a push, it's a pull. That's why it's attraction, gravitation, it's a pull. And the result of this dynamic reveals the Tao. The law of attraction, as 3/4 positive and negative seek union with their corresponding 1/4, or 3/4 positive and 3/4 negative seek union with their remaining quarter. The pull of attraction or union is greater than the push of repulsion, of duality, of radiation. But the illusion is that opposites attract. It's the hidden potential for union which sets one dimension into motion and creates the second dimension. This is what sets the universe into motion. The the dual nature of radiation and gravitation. As you can see then, gravitation has nothing to do with mass. There is no mass. All of this is just taking place in the great God mind of the universe. Einstein said, "I want to know how God thinks. The rest are just details." Well, brothers and sisters, behold, this is how God thinks, brought down and crystallized for you so that you can see it for yourself in motion. And despite the fact that in the Tao, the Ching, it says the Tao that can be explained is not the real Tao, fair enough. What we have shown you so far is not the actual universe, but what we are showing you through symbol and through mathematics and through geometry and through logic and through the actual process of creation, the step-by-step process, we are creating a union and bringing the great God mind into synthesis, into his creation, into the world. Bringing the Christ into the world means bringing the Christ into you, means bringing the God mind into your mind. And yes, meditate, and you can arrive at this on your own. But we are to help to guide you along that process. So let's go back to our opposed potentialities of the universe. Radiation, the law of duality and polarity, which seeks a dialectic. And gravitation, the law of attraction, which seeks unity. And by seeks, we mean self-evident experiential knowledge. Duality seeks the knowledge of the dialectic. What's it like at the extremes? What's it like at the limits? What are the limits? Are there any limits? And then gravitation, the law of attraction, seeks unity. What's it like to be whole and one? What's it like to play the game of opposition and then reconciliation? So here we have the north-south pole of one axis. And as the Tao goes through its motion, its dance, it creates the east-west pole. The north-south pole, its sound is E. Right? It's an I. It's the being, the I am. But interesting, when it turns on its side, it creates the east-west pole, which is we. E, and the inverse of this W is an M. So you have E, I is pronounced E, and if you take this W and turn it upside down, you end up with me. Me. But this axis is we. So the union of the separation of me and the union of we creates a sound which vibrates through the ether like me, we, me, we, me, we, me, we, me, we, me, we, me. You have to apologize for our penmanship because we're using a mouse here, not an actual pen. If we had a pen, this might look one of those tablet things. It might look better. So the laws of 4 and 5 unfold. The law of 3 procreates a second axis and cardinal points. The second dimension, the cross of the universe. So you saw how the Tao in its rotation creates the axis north, south, east, west. So remember that each 8 here represents one dimension. We showed that from the beginning through our process of creation. But we have 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 0 point. The 0 point is the point of 3. That's why the great Trinity, positive, negative, and neutral, right? Father, Son, Holy Spirit, whatever you want, it's the 0 point. It's the great nothing. It's the great absolute. That's why the Trinity and the 3 is so important. That's why 3 on its side is an M, and we get the me, and the upside down, the 3 is a W. We get the we. It's all connected. All of this is connected. If you start doodling this on your own on a piece of paper, all you need is a piece of paper and a pen, and you can work through this. This is the great cross on the universe. This is the symbol of the Christ, of course. Positive, negative, and union of positive and negative, neutral. The union of positive and negative, the 0 point, the absolute, the center, the rose on the cross. And you can see that. You can see a flower here on this cross. And here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. These little petals here. Maybe if we choose our highlighter, we can color them in. Right? Oh, you know what? Maybe we should have chosen a red. And then number one, it'll show better. And secondly, the Rosicrucians talk about the rose on the cross. This is the rose on the cross of the universe. The rose on the cross is the Christ, who sacrificed himself on the cross. Now, what does he sacrifice? His body. And he descends into the dead to awaken and liberate those who are suffering, to liberate those who are in hell. And that's what we're here doing now. We're showing you, and we're working through this, and every time we do this presentation, we take it a little bit further to crystallize and clarify for all watching that it is possible to marry the mind of man with the mind of God. And through a universal adaptive language, visual aids, through visualization, we can use the universal languages of mathematics and music, the octave, and sacred geometry, and logic, and visualization, and just a simple pen and paper, and step by step, we can unfold the nature of reality and put it into our consciousness using our mind. There's the work of the Christ is the work of the great unification. The Buddha Maitreya, who was promised to arrive, was the Buddha of the synthesis. Well, to synthesize means to eliminate all duality and all separation. It means to embrace gravitation at the most fundamental, essential level, which is in the being. To embrace and allow and accept and become whole and return and unite that which was torn asunder by this outward spiral of the Ulm of life, spiraling this relationship between expansion and contraction. But we've reached the limits of that expansion. So now we have to, at that limit, the 2 points have to converge on the source. The limitless light descends into the world and then descends into hell. from here, the limitless light, well, we'll get to that. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, so what happens, of course, is that this axis turns, and oh, these arrows are not pointing in the right direction. Anyway, so you get the idea. So the axis turns, and it creates the foundation, the fourth dimension. If you take 2 dimensions and you copy them, you end up with 4 dimensions, and you end up with the numbers 1 through 9 and base 10 mathematics, because 0 is still a digit, but we have 9 points. 4D, we have 8 poles, 8 axes, and 9 points, and 10 digits. But here's the mystery. Where's the 3rd dimension? What happened to the laws of 6 and 7? In other words, we can't just keep doubling everything. So what's going on? How do we reconcile this? And the answer, of course, is the law of 3 unfolds 3 times into the laws of 6 and 7, into the organizational law of everything and the 3rd dimension. So what we have here is 1, 2, 3 axes. And 3 times 1 dimension is 3 dimensions. We have 6 poles, 7 points, the X, Y, Z axes, and we have what we refer to here as an esoteric sphere, because we have to use our imagination here, and this cube, which is created by these points, if we connect, inside of this cube is a sphere, which is exactly defined. Its radius, its and diameter is exactly the same as the circles which define the cube. And we refer to this as a esoteric sphere because it's contained within the 3-dimensional cube. It's inside the 3-dimensional reality, but it's an esoteric sphere. So if we count them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we also see now that it's a flower with 6 points, or a 6-pointed star, if you wanted to draw triangles in here, an upright and an inverted triangle, a 6-pointed star. Now this is where it gets interesting, is that if we apply the law of 7 to the laws of 7 and 6, the laws of 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13 unfold. 3 laws of 6 on 3 axes, we end up with 9 esoteric spheres. So what we're doing is, along those same axes, we've now taken we've taken those circles and moved them out in 3 dimensions. And we've created in here a cube, which is made up of esoteric spheres, and in which there is another esoteric sphere containing an esoteric sphere. And these are all overlapping because we're working in 3 dimensions, 1, 2, 3 dimensions. So we have 12 overlapping circles in perimeter. That's around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's where in numeral, and that's where we get the 12 constellations. We get the 12 months out of the year, because 12, 1 plus 2 equals 3. So mathematically, 12 relates directly to the origin, which is 0, which is 3, which is the Trinity, which we showed at the beginning. And 3 times 4 is 12. We have 7 non-overlapping circles. We have 19 circles total. 1 plus 9 equals 10. 9 minus 1 equals 8. We have the law of 10, and 1 plus 0 is the origin and the perimeter, the everything. 9 minus 1 equals 8. Also, 7 times 8 equals 56. 5 plus 6 equals 11. 7 times 6 times 2 is 84. 8 plus 4 equals 12. 7 times 7 is 49. 4 plus 9 equals 13. 7 plus 6 equals 13. These are just the mathematical relationships symbolically, and the special relationship between 3 and 6, 3, 6, and 9 appears. We count 7 flowers in 2D, but in 3D there are 4 spheres, each in 2 rows. So in other words, 8 plus 1 sphere in the center, which is 9. So we count them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the esoteric sphere in the middle is 9. So now we have 9 esoteric spheres. The 13th circle and 9th sphere flower circle is unique. It's surrounded by 12 circles and has 12 petals, 6 radial, 6 circumferential. The esoteric sphere within a cube of esoteric spheres. So here you see the allegory of the 12 disciples about the source, the being, the Christ who follows with 12 disciples around him. This is the actual geometric representation, manifestation that, and why the universe has 12 constellations revolving around the pole star. And well, the 12 constellations, yeah, which rotate around the North Star, the pole star, which is the center of the universe, and how we, from our vantage point anyway. And the 12 disciples who are the companions of the Christ, right? They're but the innermost intimate Christ is this esoteric sphere, which is closest to the source, which is closest to the 0 point. If we apply the law of 7 to the laws of 9, 12, and 13, we produce the flower of life. You may have seen this in your travels and in your studies, in your travels, however you want to let's see if we can reposition something here. Okay, so here again we're referring to complete. So the flower of life contains a complete cube, right? The three-dimensional world made up of esoteric spheres. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1. Let's try to use this with the highlighter, but we're going to switch back to yellow here. But hopefully you can see. Well, I mean the slide shows it, right? So the gray flowers are the ones which are actual esoteric spheres. They're contained within other circles. And if we isolate those circles, which are true esoteric spheres, the laws of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, forming cube of spheres, 3 rows of 9 spheres each, 27. 3 times 9 is 27. 2 plus 7 equals 9. Everything gets reduced to 9s and 7s. And so this is what, again, in Eastern mysticism and Hinduism and whatnot, they refer to as the flower of life. And contained within the flower of life we have Metatron's cube and foundational geometry, and we also have the 4D hypercube. So all of these circles, right, defined this way and using the geometric connections between them all. And then you see how the circles 1, 2, 3. I got to go back to my laser pointer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then we have the inner cube contained within the larger cube, and that's and they're connected by these radii radiating out, the points radiating out to the larger cube. And this is, and actually when you count this in 2D, you get the wrong number. If you count it in 3D, you have to count all the spheres at all the points in 3 dimensions. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because we have to count this circle in the middle 3 times in 3 dimensions. Anyway, this starts being mind-blowing, and it's difficult to visualize in 2 dimensions. But this is the so-called foundations of sacred geometry, which is the foundation of Western thought, of Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras. The Pythagorean mystery school in Greece is based on the following. So, this previous slide, we have the flower of life, which was the foundation of Eastern mysticism and Hinduism, and then we have Metatron's cube, which is born out of that same thing, and that's the foundation of Western mysticism. And here we have the Tao, which is, we see the origin of both, and we are here to offer the synthesis between these Eastern and Western back to its origin and unfold and offer that union, that which was torn asunder, and to put it back together again. And that's the work of the Buddha Maitreya, the Buddha of the synthesis. He's the Buddha of the synthesis because we're talking about synthesis on the most essential level. This is where we start looking at how the Tao and these perturbations expand outward to the limit. So if this is the line of being, and we say this is the line of life, it goes into positive infinity and negative infinity. And this is the line of being. We have limitless light and the potential for unlimited dark, because we have the potential for limitless light. That potentiality exists, but as we create that limitless light, because of the act of creation that we walk through, we will be creating its inverse according to the great balance, according to the great Tao. We must have, the universe must be in balance. The universe will seek every act of creation, every act of creation in the light will create its opposite in the dark. And what we see unfolding here is the fractal holographic expansion around the 0 point out of the absolute to arrive at the limits positive infinity on this line and negative infinity on that line. But the Tao, it's in constant interplay and rotation. But now you see how the Tao, in its totality of everything, emanates from nothing, but it's observe on the line of being how, because of gravitation, each expression of the Tao is going to rotate such that its complement is together, because of the law of attraction. The law of polarity is pushing. So you can see how you have light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark. These perturbations of oscillations, right? You can also see, if we quickly switch to our pen here, that we have an oscillation, we have a vibration. And we also can see from this visualization that we have an emanation out from the true absolute, emanating out this way towards the light and emanating out this way towards the darkness. So this radiation simultaneously out from the source, radiating positively and radiating negatively, in accordance with the Tao, the positive and negative. And of course, because this Tao is spinning, is rotating, we have not just the line of being, we have the line of life. And in the line of life, likewise, this same phenomenon is taking place. There is a radiation radiating out in forward motion. The rotation is counterclockwise, but the creation is this forward undulation of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And that is the nature of the knowledge of good and evil. Because this point, we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, this point is the point of gnosis, the point of self-evident experiential knowledge. The line of life is a line of experience through, let's call it time, for lack of a better expression. And then the line of being is the oscillation back and forth in the perturbations in the absolute, radiating out to the limits of the limitless light and to the limits of unlimited dark. And the experience of that produces knowledge, because or wisdom, Sophia. And the gravitation or crystallization of that knowledge, the storehouse, exists and refer to the Akashic records and so on. We might be getting ahead of ourselves. Remember, we are sharing all of this as Atlas information, because we are not yet died and reborn. So this world is not yet died and reborn, and as a result, we are in the process of working all of this through in formation, and you are a part of that process to witness it and be a part of it, because we are all one. It's our job to try to illuminate and implant into the minds these seeds, into the consciousness of the world, so that it will know to not identify with this illusory holographic reality, and that we are all one, and that good and evil doesn't exist. They are just the forces of radiation and gravitation. They're just the forces of repulsion and attraction. And through the perturbations, through the natural course of the vibration of sound, the duality, the pendulum. We move through seasons of light, seasons of dark, seasons of good, seasons of evil, so to speak. But when we reach the absolute peak of light and the absolute dark of dark, and we reach the limits of dark and how much we can take, and as far as we can go, as far as we can take the expansion of the universe, there has to be a great reset. And that is when the Christ descends from the North Star, the pole star. The Christ descends down to the earth, which is here. But not just into the earth. This is the 3 dimensions. We'll get to that in a second. This is 1, 2, 3 dimensions. But he has to descend into hell and do the work to achieve the forgiveness of sins, which is the elimination of ego and the forgiveness of karma. So the wiping the slate clean, wiping the debts clean, chasing the money lenders from the temple is chasing those to whom we owe the debt, and we have to chase them out of ourselves, and we wipe the debt clean. It's like that's why in the world today there's so much talk about the world banking system and the Great Reset, and even the moneylenders and the bankers are talking about the Great Reset, because the Black Lodge and the White Lodge are one. The Black Lodge works for the White Lodge. They're just an opponent in a chess game. And so we have to reset back to zero. So for that, the Christ comes down and teaches here in hell, in the lunar astral plane, and tries to awaken consciousness and free souls, so that so here's the absolute light. That's mercy and affirmation at the top, absolute dark or absolute severity and negation at the bottom, and absolute source of love, reconciliation, in the middle. And we have self-evident experiential knowledge in that should say synthesis, the affirmation of I am. And down here we have self-evident experiential knowledge in coagula, or negation, I am not. And in the middle we have self-evident experiential knowledge of in solution. So the reconciliation, I am that I am. So the great God mind of all, the great God mind of the absolute, recognizes that all is one, and one is all, and all is God. And it's all within us, just as we are within it. So in this configuration, we see the pillars of severity and mercy, and then the pillar of light, which is the pillar of love, the pillar of reconciliation, the absolute source of love. And but again, because we have used the visualization and we recognize that the 9, right? The 9 is above the 6. So here we have, we have 9, and then here we have 6. Sure how we clear these annotations. All right. So here then we have the first, the second, and the third dimension. And where there's no particular reason that emanate out from the fourth dimension. And then we get the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh dimension. The seventh dimension, of course, contains all of the supernal worlds, but the solar, right? These are all belonging to the light, because we have absolute light here at the North Star, at the pole star. And so emanating out of the 0 point, we have the world, the 3 dimensions, and then we have the lower 5th dimension, 2 plus 3, and it's 2 plus 3 because we don't count the first dimension. These should be numbered actually differently. It should be not 1, 2, 3 here, but this should be reversed. It should be 1, 2, 3 emanating out this way, not this way. We'll have to fix that. So when you add together the second and third dimension, you get the lower 5th dimension. So over here we have the inverse. If this is negative infinity on the line of life, over here we have -8, and we subtract 2 from 8, we get 6. We subtract 2 because we take the 8th dimension here and subtract this point and this point, because there's 2 points to subtract, and we get 6. And then over here we have positive infinity on the line of life, and we add 1 point to it, which is here, and that's how we get 9. So we have 6 and 9 on the line of life. Now, the perturbations in the absolute, when we were showing you earlier, the vibrations, all those Tao can separate out in the following orientation, where you have the dark together and light, and then light together and dark. So these little trinities of attraction, right? Because gravitationally, the potentialities of union and repulsion, the two sides of light and the dark want to be oriented together. They want to achieve that unity. So when you create these triangles, you can see that we have dark, light, dark, light, dark, and you see this oscillation. And then the separation is always, we have light on this side and then the darkness on this side. So this is how we get the pillars, the pillars of the pillars of the pillars of mercy and the pillar of severity. And then the middle pillar is harmony or union or reconciliation, right? Holy affirmation on the right, holy negation on the left, and holy reconciliation in the middle, or the pillar of light. The space between the pillars, because the two pillars form the arch. And we will, as we continue our process of working through this, for your sake and for the sake of humanity, we will be revising this presentation as we go along. And this presentation is actually going to be put into book form as well. That's why the colors are very muted. It's not a very colorful presentation, because we have to be cognizant of the fact that when we take it to a publisher, we take it to a printer, or if we self-publish it, if there's no publisher who wants to work with us, if we have to self-publish this book, we don't want to create a whole bunch of unnecessary work for us by using too much color, because it will be published in black and white. But here you can basically see the sephira of the tree of life unfolding. And we will work the details of that out in relationship to the dimensions of the dimensionality and how they unfold in the holographic nature of duality and of the Tao, and as how that unfolds, and in that fractal way. But as you can see, then there's this oscillation, and as each time when you achieve maximum separation on between the two pillars, there's a force, there's a tendency to return back to the middle pillar, the pillar of light, and the pillar of love. That, my friends, is the Great Reset. This is just a game that we've been playing. And we have been told, it doesn't matter what tradition we find ourselves in, what dogma, what belief system that we've been following. We've been told to fear, if you will, our adversary. But when one plays chess, one comprehends that one's opponent is just an opponent. My opponent is not my enemy. My opponent in chess makes me a better chess player, makes me aware, tests me, challenges me. And that's the fun of chess, to be challenged, to face opposition. Chess is no fun if you just walk all over your opponent. All the world is in chess. And there's a reason why in chess the queen is the most powerful piece, the most powerful. She can move anywhere, and she can move in all directions. And the queen is the most valuable of the pieces that we have. And the king is actually very weak. But the king is the point. Using the fact that we have walked through, using visual aids, we have walked through the process of creation from the 0 point to everything, radiation and gravitation, the two forces, opposed forces, masculine and the feminine. The masculine force is that radiative force that goes out and actually creates, or the feminine force is extracted from that, from the whole. The two radiate outwards. So the light and the dark radiate outwards from the absolute nothingness, as we saw, according to the laws of duality and according to the law of the Tao, to create the everything and the nothing, the origin, the source of everything. But in truth, the source of everything has to have both masculine and feminine in it. If positive and negative radiate out from a single source, then the source has to have within it the potentiality for both, the potential for both polarities. They have to be together in union in the 0 point. And love is severity and mercy in balance. That's the Tao. That's the Tao is the smallest visual symbol that we have at our disposal that really captures the essence of the dynamic that we're looking at. That and the cross. But the cross in motion, the rotating cross, is of course a swastika. Now, when we comprehend, so we can ask ourselves questions. Here's the answer, for example. How is it possible that the Nazis used the swastika and they used the power of the swastika to enable and empower and hypnotize an entire nation and plunge the entire world into the Second World War? How are they able to do that? Well, that's because we've seen that the light and the dark emanate out from the same source, and they're connected to the same continuum, and they're connected to the same underlying fundamental mind space, mind spark, which is the universal mind of God, the singular consciousness of the universe, and that they're both playing on the same board. They're both playing to win, but each is simply playing in opposition to one another. That is why in chess, the two opponents have the same pieces, the same number of pieces. They can do the same moves. They can use the same tactics. There is no difference between either side, except that they're opponents to each other. But when you play chess, and chess is one of those games that there are literally billions and billions of different moves and combinations and permutations of chess. If you've played chess, you know that you will reach a point where the game is just, in the middle game, it just gets too complex, too complicated, or you reach a détente with your opponent where it's a draw. And nobody can move, nobody can do anything. And one of two things happen. Either you reach across the table and you shake hands with your opponent and you thank them for the game, and then you wipe the board clean and reset up and set the game up again from the beginning. Or that's a very fast way of bringing the game to an end and resetting the game, because it's gotten into deadlock, right? Sometimes you refer to that. You can hear that in negotiations and individuals who come to a deadlock. There can be no more progress. There can be no more progress because of the fractal chaos has reached a point of saturation, and the complication and confusion has reached its limit. And that in such a soup, there's no way to synthesize anything of any real value to anyone. And neither side, because we're talking about a chess match here, neither side can move. They get bogged down and locked down into a position on the board where the game is stuck. And they can either call it a draw, or if they need to play the game to its conclusion to checkmate, they have to start trading pieces. They have to start sacrificing pieces and trading pieces. So I take your bishop, you take my rook, I take your knight, you take, and there's this trade-off, and this great reckoning takes place. And it starts clearing out the board. And a whole bunch of pieces get taken off the board in that process. And we enter what's known as the end game in chess. And in the end game, it really gets reduced down. And very often, there's really only a couple kings and maybe some pawns, and then it's a race to see who can get their pawn to the other end of the board and get a new queen. Because once you have, if you have a queen, master of nature, and a king, and your opponent only has a king, it's only a matter of time when you will checkmate them and you will win. The game will come to an end. When the game comes to an end, the two players, the opponents, clear off the board and they set up a new game, and then they start the new game from the beginning with order, and they start playing their game again. We are in the end game. Well, we are in the end game, the early end game, because we are still wrought with, we are living in the times of confusion, and this world is, and this world is gripped by fear, and both sides are engulfed by fear of one another, and fear of what is to come, fear of the great reckoning, fear of the end game. And really, the best thing to do in this time, if neither player wants to go through that war of attrition and all sacrificing everything and taking everything and blah blah, and going through that whole process, trying to reach a checkmate, then the best thing to do is declare a draw and wipe the board clean in one fell swoop and reset the board. And that's what you hear people talking about all the time when they talk about the Great Reset. But this reset, we're here to tell you that this reset goes far deeper and has far greater implications in the universe than just our planet. Our vision, our understanding of the universe is clouded by our own confusion, the fact that this humanity is asleep. And we need to go through a process of wiping the board clean, chasing the money lenders from the temple. We have to clear a great deal of karmic debt, needs to be cleared and needs to be forgiven. And part of the work of the Christ, the great work, is to come and descend into the earth, yes, and then descend into hell, into the lower fifth dimension, and awaken souls who are trapped there, and show them and the error of their ways, and that we don't have to live in this state of confusion. We don't have to live in this ball of confusion. That there is, and that we don't have to live in constant attrition and war and conflict with one another, because at the ultimate level of being, the Black Lodge works for the White Lodge. And that's why our message is going to be unpopular, even to Gnostics. Because Master Samael, for example, his books, we had to stop reading his books at one point, because his books were written with such authority and didacticism about railing against the ego and all the evil and everything else that it does. And it was just feeding this sense of this adversarial aspect. It's the same reason why we used to play chess as a child. We were actually participated in chess. We were a bit of a child chess prodigy, and we participated in chess tournaments. We were part of a chess club, and eventually, though, the more we got into competitive chess and the need to win and winning and winning and winning and winning, we stopped playing chess. We stopped playing chess altogether. The beauty and the joy of chess for us diminished the more the pressure to win was imposed upon us, or we were imposing it on ourselves, or it was imposed upon us by the chess community. And well, if you're a part of a chess team and you're part of a chess club and you're part of chess tournaments, you have to win. That's the point of chess, is to win, to win, to win. And we never felt the need to win. We felt the need to be the best that we could be and enjoy and relish and have fun, but not the need to win at all costs. Because the effort, the energy that goes into that, for what? For what purpose? Because if we win, someone else has to lose. So very often we enjoyed playing chess. And of course, sometimes you win some and you lose some, and it's fine, right? That's the joy. That's the joy of anything. You win some, you lose some. That's the joy of life. That's the interplay. You can't win them all. But the ability to recognize that failure is a part of life, and darkness and suffering is a part of life. We don't have to avoid suffering. There's no reason to avoid suffering. What's more important is to recognize that suffering doesn't exist. It's an illusion. We suffer on this level because we are an illusion at this level. We're in this game world. It's like a video game. Your character in the game world running around might be fighting monsters and fighting demons and doing who knows what in that game world. But if you only suffer in that strict sense if you identify with the character in the game world, and if you identify and really truly believe that you are, I don't know, a wizard or a archer or a thief running around in World of Warcraft, and you're fighting these monsters and demons, and then you're actually getting hit, and when you watch your hit points going down on the screen, you go, "Oh my God, and you identify with that," then you will viscerally feel, if you allow yourself to be lost in the character, then yeah, you will suffer tremendously. But really, who is your innermost player? Your innermost player, your being, is the one playing the game. So if you can reconnect with your being and not identify with the physical, the mental, and the emotional suffering that you're experiencing right now, you recognize that the causes of those suffering, the causes of that suffering, are not your enemy. They are your opponent. These words and these our understandings of these words and terminology. So remember, we talked about the mantras and the sounds, and it's ironic that where the Christ has left the teachings for us to discover, because remember, the living, breathing Word of God, the Logos, is not bound to any book. It is all around us, and it's within us, the great Aum of life. It's in all phenomena. And when we walk through life with one eye in and one eye out, let's start with that sound. In, also in. So I and E are related because the vowel sound of I, E, is related to the 3, because the 0 point, and the Trinity, the 3, are connected. But remember that, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What if we take the sound in, In. What's the opposite of in? Ni. We realize that that's the great joke from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The word of power used in the Darkwood by the knights who say, "We are the knights who say ni." And it's one of the funniest lines of all of Monty Python. But contained within it is this beautiful essential truth that it's just the opposite of in. Ni. In ni. In ni. In ni. Ini. I-N-I. I-N-I-N-I-N-I. Nini. Ni, 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 ni. Then we take that N and expand it out to an M. I am, right? I am, I'm, im. And then the opposite of that is, but it's, we start with the M. Me. Me, 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 me. This is how singers warm up their vocal cords. Me, 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 me. But you invert the M the opposite way, and the M becomes a W. And you have we, 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 we. And this little piggy, and that little piggy, and the other little piggy, and then this little piggy went we all the way home. Nursery rhymes contain such timeless universal truths. The vowel sounds E and O, the crown chakra and the heart chakra. E, O, E, O, E, O, E, O. The dot, right, at the center, and the origin and the everything. The origin and the everything are that EO. That's why when we created computers, it's IO, input and output, right? Input, output, gravitation and radiation. Radiation is output and gravitation is input. So it's this, it's the pull. So IO is also the 1 and the 0 of the law of 10. It's also, well, the 1 and the 0 of binary language, binary computer language, on which we create the whole of the virtual universe, including the internet and all those video games and everything. It's all just electric. It's all just electricity. But it's interesting how using mathematics, base 10 mathematics, but in binary language, it's 1s and 0s. So again, the living, breathing word of God, this clues are being left for us all around us. We have created virtual worlds. And recently, we saw a video that was showing the Unreal 5 engine, which is a game rendering engine, and the new lighting effects and particle effects for Unreal 5. And it's truly like Pixar quality animations, but in real time. So the next generation of video games are going to be almost photorealistic. We are on the verge of being able to create Matrix-like virtual realities. And we've created that. So if we are on the verge of creating Matrix-like virtual realities, then is it really that? And we did that from an electric foundation of 1s and 0s. Then why would we assume anything other than we are existing in a Matrix-like virtual reality based on a foundation of electricity, of those opposing potentials of radiation and gravitation? Gravitation has nothing to do with matter. Matter does not exist. Matter is an illusion. It does not exist. It is a figment of our imagination within the great all mind of God, of which we have an essence, a spark within us. There is no matter. There is no reason or point for matter. All of physical reality, all of physical science, bunk. Read Walter Russell, read A New Concept of the Universe, and meditate as Nikola Tesla did on 3, 6, and 9, and discover the true nature of reality, the foundation of the universe itself, the foundation of the pillars. Because remember, light, sometimes it's a wave, sometimes it's a particle. Actually, it doesn't need to be a wave or a particle because it doesn't go anywhere. Light is simply perturbations in the absolute. It's all sound, it's all vibration in the absolute that explodes and expands out and radiates out to create this incredible illusion, this incredible virtual reality, which includes the illusion of the supernal worlds and the infernal worlds. We have no allegiance and no identification, no attachments to the White Lodge, to this or that archangel, to any of it. Because we are the Buddha of the synthesis. We are one with the Christ. One with the rose on the cross, which we showed you. The true 0 point of reality, the true origin of reality, which recognizes that our egos and the Black Lodge are here to test us. They are our opponent. And they are locked, as the Tao is, in this eternal dance. But in the perturbations in the absolute, there are great cosmic days and great cosmic nights. So there's this undulation, this back and forth and back and forth. There's this shift, which means that sometimes you can't win them all. Sometimes the dark side wins. Sometimes the light side wins. But when we reach the peak separation, there must be a great reset. There must be a recognition of one another. To reach across the table, shake hands, and say, "Good game. Now let's reset and play another round." But that reset must take place within our hearts and within our minds. And we bring everything back, and the Christ returns to the world, and we set the game up afresh with what? With fresh new pieces and a repositioning on the board, and also a reaffirmation of the rules. Both sides need to have a clear understanding of the rules to be able to play, and what those rules are, and why they are. So we have to be, so even though we can call the world a chess match and a chess game, we have to be practical. And so part of our work then is to introduce what we're referring here to as the Attlas project, yes, but the Attlas project, the Archaeon, the Archaeon. you may have heard in Gnosis the terms aeons and archons. And there was actually a video game back in the 80s called Archon, which is very much like chess. It was inspired by chess. And it was inspired by the Piece of Sophia. It was inspired by esotericism. And it was this these two opposing sides, and they had pieces, and there was a checkered board, and they were in constant conflict with each other. But during the Great Reset, there is a union, a coming together, a convergence, where once again the two opponents come together to shake hands, to recognize that they are opponents but not enemies. In the great native North American tradition, they have the tradition that they call burying the hatchet. It's time to bury the hatchet. The hatchet, which is what separates you, right? The hatchet, the axe that cleaves you in two. You bury the hatchet, and that which was cleaved in two can reconstitute and reunite and be one again. So the aeons and the archons come together during this time. The absolute light returns down into the planet, and and goes down into hell, into the absolute dark, and brings back souls, awakened souls from hell, and also sacrifices himself. Because again, we mentioned earlier, in the end game, before the end game can begin, someone has to sacrifice pieces. And so the Christ comes and sacrifices himself. And from his sacrifice comes the end game, and that end game brings the game to an end and allows for the Great Reset. And then the Christ rises from the dead, returns with the knowledge and together with the seeds to do the following work that's on the screen right now. And we'll walk you through some of this. But here we have the two sides, arc and ion, the arc and aeon. And here on this side, we have the arch, which is the actionable reset of Christic humanity, arch. And reset also stands for reconciliation and renewal. So the actionable reset, reconciliation, and renewal of Christic humanity. The arc is the portal to truth, the vessel of love, bridge over troubled waters, the strong box of salvation, and the strongest form made by man or nature. That's what the arc is. And then over here, we have the ions, which stands for act inward and onward now. Inward and onward now. It's a call to action, here and now. Act in on Tao. To act on the Tao. To be, in other words, to be love. Because the Tao is love. It's the center cross of light, and it's the reconciliation. It's the balancing. It's the elimination of fear. The elimination of ego. The chasing the moneylenders from the temple. Those who make us behave in ways which causes us to accrue karma, accrue karmic debts. We don't want to have karmic debts. That's the thing about life and the game of chess that we play in life versus regular chess is that when chess is over with, it's over with. But the great law of cause and effect means that the universe constantly has to balance itself out. So the great Tao, the great God mind, has to achieve balance. And if the universe is constantly being thrown out of balance, and there's too much darkness or there's too much light, the universe has to balance that and manage that karma, and it does so intelligently. But with what is to come, we need to be able to go through that and work through that without accruing more debts, without accruing more karma. What we have in the center is the word seek and see via self-evident experiential knowledge. And see visual aid. See visual aid, like we've been using in this PowerPoint presentation. We've been strategizing, engaging, and executing with virtual interactive simulation, universal adaptive language, and actionable intelligence discourse. That's a mouthful. That's a big, long intellectual statement to say that visual aids need to be used in such a way that we can engage with them and have a virtual interactive simulation of reality through the visual aid process. So just like we did at the beginning of the presentation, going from nothing to the Tao, to expanding out the flower of life and all of sacred geometry, to then creation of the tree of life, all out of nothing. But we used visualization and step by step by step unfolded the laws of the universe, the laws of mathematics, of creation, of gravitation and radiation, that physical science, the materialist scientists don't understand. They still think that physical reality is real. And they're basing their science on the flawed premise that physical reality is real. Now, we can't blame them because they're asleep. Their consciousness is asleep. But we're here to use visual aids to help them seek self-evident experiential knowledge for themselves. And to use visual aids in such a way that we can walk them step by step by step by step, or together, do it together in a workshop type situation. But you can't deny what your own experience is. So for me to just tell you something is, what's that old adage, right? Tell me and I may remember, show me and I may forget, involve me and I will understand. That's that notion of engagement and participation and participatory learning, active learning, not passively just shoveling things into your mind, but actively, consciously working it out. And an experience gives you that. We will get into some of this in more detail in just a minute. So let's start by going around. So in the center of the circle, in other words, in the heart of the circle is really gnosis, right? Knowledge, experiential knowledge, self-evident experiential knowledge. You see it, you experience it, it's self-evident. And see visual aids are able to assist in the creation of self-evident experiential knowledge, like the Tao, like symbols of power, the cross, the Tao. Once, even though it says, again, even though it says in the Tao Te Ching that the Tao that can be explained is not the real Tao, fair enough. But to deconstruct and explain the Tao is important for someone to comprehend it and comprehend what the Tao represents, what the Tao represents. And Walter Russell, in his book, A New Concept of the Universe, goes to great lengths explaining what the Tao represents, the nature of the electric universe, and the opposed potentialities of radiation and gravitation. Gravity requires no mass. There is no mass. Mass is an illusion. Mass is a fabrication in the great all mind of God. If we can get that truth across to the scientists, along with the eternal values of do no harm and respecting the law of free will, and do no harm to others, and the great truth of service that we here now are characters in this virtual reality, and that we are here to serve our innermost being, the being that, and the nature of the universe is sound. It seems to us that if we can accomplish that, then we have a renewed chance to reset humanity's understanding with SEAMS, sound, empowered, ethical, metaphysical science, and take physical science and materialist science as we know it and throw it out the window. Atomic theory, and that CERN super collider and all that nonsense and all that money and time and energy being thrown into the galvanization and the solidification of a science which doesn't exist. It exists only in our mind. And the concept of the electron, there is no electron. And the concept of protons and neutrons and all of this stuff, all there is the opposed potentialities of radiation and gravitation. And the smallest, there is no quantum, there is no quantum field. It is all one, and it is all nothing. It is all perturbations in the absolute. But in the field that we exist in the universe, that whole universe exists within that field. But there is no substance, there is no mass, and there is no, and there is no need, therefore, to accumulate things. There's no need to dogmatically hold on to beliefs if those beliefs are false. So the ethics have to come into play here. Truth, we have to move away from this idea of theory. The whole of the scientific theory, the whole of the scientific method, apologies, the whole of the scientific method needs to be thrown out the window. We need to experiment, we need to experience consciously. We need to enter into meditation and observe consciously ourselves, one eye in and one eye out. Inni, 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 in, out, in, out, and meditate on our being and visualize what we are, and use our consciousness to penetrate and do our observations and explorations of phenomena. Then we can do informed, enlightened experiments and experimentation, and recognize that what we are witnessing as three-dimensional and physical phenomenon, we can penetrate into the metaphysical underlying foundations of that phenomena. And this is why Walter Russell rails quite heavily against Sir Isaac Newton and Einstein and any of the other materialist scientists, despite the fact that many of them were also great esotericists, because Walter Russell's new concept of the universe is, we might say, the master of this sound-empowered ethical metaphysical science. The new humanity, the next humanity on this planet, is going to follow the science of Walter Russell and build its understanding of the universe based on Walter Russell's new concept of the universe. And Pythagorean mathematics and geometry and all that stuff is going to give way to, it's going to be there and still going to be useful and practical in describing the physicality of phenomenon, but a new mathematics is already emerging, which is describing the metaphysical foundations of that physical phenomenon. Like we have in this presentation shown you the metaphysical foundations of sacred geometry. And so we need to, it's, in other words, we're returning now, we're going back to where we came. The great out-breath now reverses and we start to move back in. And as we start to move back in and back up, we start to reverse some of this unnecessary complication and misunderstanding that exists in our mental mind. Moving clockwise around our visualization here, the next item here at the North Pole, because it's pinnacle to the salvation of humanity, is the mantra Iaum, 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 the great Aum of life, but Iaum. Individual analogs observing ultimate methodology. The ability to see God in everything and to see the fingerprints of God in everything and know that those are the fingerprints of God, the ultimate methodology that is present at the heart of all phenomena, including ourselves. That ultimate methodology of the spiraling potentialities of radiation and gravitation, of push and pull, of us and them, of all of these dualities, these apparent opposites that are, and the interplay between those apparent opposites and how they inform one another, and in doing so inform us. We come into formation through the interplay of those opposite phenomena, just as our innermost being grows and develops by coming down into this reality, into a physical form, and then this physical form suffers from psychological aggregates, the egos, which is pulling us and trying to put our consciousness to sleep and dragging us down into hell. And we must follow the hero's journey and descend into hell, comprehend those egos, comprehend our defects and vices, what they're trying to teach us. And when we realize what they're trying to teach us, we recognize that those egos were not demons haunting us, but they were teachers. They were our teachers. They were our companions on this journey. And my enemy is my friend. My enemy is just my opponent is my friend. And then the word enemy comes from eeny, meeny, and you know the nursery rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. These are all mantras. We teach them to little kids, but nobody knows what they mean. We never bothered to teach the kids what they mean. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. E-I-E-I-E-I-O. E-O-E-O-I-O. The Tao. And this individual analogs observing ultimate methodology and practicing the ultimate methodology is this self-observation, self-remembering, and psychological work that we do, each and every one of us, on ourselves. That's why it's pinnacle to everything, because all are one. And if we can accomplish that great work for ourselves, then by the very nature of the microcosmos and the macrocosmos, we will change the world. The world will begin to reflect the improvements that we have made on ourselves, because we are the world. The whole of humanity is one. We are all part and one with the being of this planet. We are all aspects of one another. We are all aspects of the one great all-spark mind of God. So if we can achieve the healing and oneness and wholeness and the self-realization of the innermost intimate Christ within us, then we can accomplish great things. And in order to assist humanity in understanding and performing this work, we have two different entities that we've have created or are working with. Two logos, two brands, two logos. One is U-Method, which is an electronic application designed to assist individuals in their self-observation practice. And then No Usus, Know You, Seek Yourself, which, as you can see, is a version of No Usus. And these logos are in progress, of course. And Know You is more of a just like a consulting, educational type activity, but that we can deploy in companies and organizations and schools, et cetera, et cetera. The whole point is to teach individuals, show individuals the tools in which they can know themselves and connect with their innermost being, because that's the key. That's the key, to know yourself and be who you are meant to be, and not identify and not remain attached to this false self. In the next circle, we have the mantra Hamsa, with some interesting spelling, which stands for Holistic, Active, Managed, Ecosystem, Integrated, Advanced Human Habitat. That's another mouthful, but in this mantra, we have Hamsa meditation of pranayama, which is the circulating of the sexual force within the body. But the ecosystem integrated advanced human habitat is the living with a high order indoor rainforest ecosystem and living within the matrix of that high order rainforest ecosystem. It doesn't want to. Well, it's not cooperating with us at the moment, the software. Oh, wait, discard. Okay. We're going to very quickly throw up some visualizations here for you. Bear with us while we do this in real time, because how else are we going to do it? We're live. This is live. This is live broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing else we can do. All right. So we've shown you these before, we believe. Basically, you see a central ecodome with a pyramidal ecosystem. This is high order rainforest plants, no soil, just living water, and the plants, and circulating the air. And this ecodome is surrounded by these living pods, and this is a spiral walkway that, so you can walk up on the inside, but it's a spiral, right? So like the alm of life and like DNA, you can walk all the way around and spiraling upwards. And this ecodome creates a torus and a toroidal field that engulfs and encapsulates the whole of the living arrangement. And these are the pea pods, which can be anything from single like bachelor type units for single occupants, or they can be double units for couples, or they can be 2-story or 3-story living units for families. And the living water from the pyramidal ecosystem actually circulates indoors and outdoors throughout this entire complex to expand that toroidal field of that electromagnetic field of the indoor ecosystem. So because an ecosystem, a high order ecosystem, is a space of love, perfect balance and harmony, right? The energies are in a constant state of rebalancing themselves. So when you enter into that field of energy, you are entering into that space of love. So those energies are going to be constantly rebalancing you. So if you're too negative, if you're, whatever, you're suffering from whatever you're suffering from, and you have that, your field of energy, your toroidal field of energy is lower vibration, and you step into the matrix of the ecosystem, your energy is immediately going to alter and throw the entire ecosystem out of balance. So what does it do? It's infinitely complex and self-organizing. It's going to adjust itself and make the changes that it needs to make in order to bring you back up into balance. The process is called entrainment. To raise a lower vibration up to a higher vibration by virtue of taking the lower vibration and inserting it into an overwhelmingly strong and powerful higher vibrational field. This is metaphysical science brought to life by working with the infinite intelligentsia of nature, not against it. We are not imposing our will on nature with Peapod Life. We are working intelligently with nature at her highest level on the physical plane. So we're working with mechanical nature, but we're working with the highest expressions of mechanical nature can attain. And we accomplish this by coming to nature and meditating and asking the ecosystem, what do you need? How can I serve? And we have created with Peapod how to put life on Mars, how to put life in inhospitable places, which is like sick building syndrome and all that off-gassing and the toxic stuff that's going off of the buildings. To put plants in that and make them healthy, we've created this indoor ecosystem. And the ecosystem is a superorganism. It is an amalgamation of all the individual organisms that make it up. So it's a collective that's self-organizing, and it's all based around this push and pull of mutual harmony and symbiosis. So this exchange, this constant balancing. So the ecosystem is an engine of life, but it's also a living, breathing symbol of love. It's a space of love because it is the eternal Tao, which is being expressed in real time on the level of mechanical nature. It's expressing nature in its highest expression, which is positive chaos. And this is going to be so important because to live surrounded by that space of love, that to be surrounded by that energy and that field of love and space of love, and for people to know and comprehend what that is and what it's like. And they will know and comprehend it because anybody who experiences an ecosystem instantly can feel it. Those who can't, well, they may be too far gone to be able to be helped if they can't, or if they're not open to the possibility. But most people that, in our experience, have felt firsthand what it's like to be present with one of the ecosystems. They immediately feel better, and they can feel it and they can sense it. And something like this, like what's on the screen right now, is just the magnitude of impact that this would have. And we are in part products of our environment. And if you surround yourself with negative energy, and if you surround yourself with sick buildings and toxic buildings and with off-gassing, and you surround yourself with violent music and violent images and images of and music which lacks any real harmony, it's all discordant and all over the place, and there's no real harmony to it. Well, you won't have harmony within yourself, because all of that, the forces of disharmony, the disharmonious forces, the forces of radiation trying to pull everything apart, overpower the source of gravitation, which is trying to get everything back together and into balance and into unity and into harmony. So the ecosystem is a superorganism. It's an engine of love. It's an engine of harmony, and is an important aspect of what we're calling the Attlas project. There's another practical application of this, and you notice that in our Hamsa, in this word Hamesia, is not just Hamsa, but also the word Messiah, Messiah, right? Now, we don't have to tell you, or perhaps if you're unfamiliar, the word Messiah means savior. In the Jewish tradition, Messiah. And what you saw, what we showed you in those images of the ecosystem, I mean, it doesn't take a great deal of imagination to see this and recognize that if you put this on a platform, and that platform floated on the water and was earthquake proof, and these units are basically recycled shipping containers, which means they're all made out of steel, very durable, and the glass that we make this out of is not glass at all. It's plexiglass. Plexiglass, which conveys more ultraviolet light, which is important not just for the plants but also the people inside. But it's also, plexiglass is what they use in hockey rinks and stuff, so to prevent hockey pucks from injuring fans in the stands. So you have here an ark, a practical living arrangement that can be put on a floating platform or can be put on a platform that sits in a bed of sand, so that if the earth shakes underneath it, the sand will shift underneath the building, but the building itself will the living units themselves will remain intact, will not crumble, because these are shipping containers stacked on top of each other. You've seen shipping containers on those huge ships, and because they're shipping containers, they are mobile. If this is set up anywhere in the world, and for some reason something happens in that part of the world, the individuals can be evacuated just by taking these pods, these P pods, and loading them onto shipping containers out into harbors and sailing them to other parts of the world where it's where the danger is past, or there's less danger. So there's a lot more to this. This is very, very, very practical, and the perimeter of this can be encased and enclosed as well. So if you're in a situation where the entire thing can be put under a dome. The dome can be much bigger. The dome doesn't have to be just in the center. The dome could actually extend over the whole shipping containers, depending on the needs. But the organization of this around the circle, and with the integration of the ecosystem, and the fact that we're using shipping containers, and shipping containers are very, very resilient. And we're talking about the end game, the end game here. We're talking about the end times, the end game, and the Great Reset. So resilience is going to be an essential part of all this. So our Peapod life, that's where we get to Peapod life here. This is the entity that we've established and the team that we have to be able to make this happen in the world. The next component is SEED. SEED, which is Society Engaged Electronic Democracy. The notion that we have right now, the problem with the democracy that we have right now is that people who are elected believe that they have been elected to govern, while they have been elected to serve. So society engaged electronic democracy is a way to use the electronic technology that we have, and everybody has a cell phone or something like, whatever, smartphone or a device or access to the internet or whatever, to be able to essentially hold their elected official accountable and remind their elected official that, hey, I'm your customer. And the customer is always right. You serve your constituents. You don't serve your own interests, and you don't serve the party. Whatever party that is. In fact, that's another big problem, the party system of democracy. True democracy is really no party, but if we have to have a party in order to get there, then let the party be the entity that we have envisioned, which is Centrist Democratic Progress Canada. We are in Canada, and as you can see from this logo, this expression of the logos, this logo encapsulates much of the philosophy and much of what we've shown you here tonight. It encapsulates the Great Reset, because we have these two opposites spiraling out, and then the Great Reset. So you have the opposites, right? You have the liberals in red. In Canada, liberals are red and conservatives are blue. So we have the liberals in red and the conservatives in blue, but we have them returning to the center and meeting in the middle, and red and blue make purple. And radiating out is this the maple leaf. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points radiating out of the cross of light. And Canada, as you know, is Turtle Island. And the CDPC, right? The CDPC, Canadian Democratic Progress Canada. The D and the P are the Holy Six and the Holy Nine. And the C is the C, which you see a lot in the Attlas Project. To see the light, to see the cross of light, to seek knowledge, self-evident experiential knowledge, to see. C is S-I, and we don't have a dollar sign here, but that's the serpent going up the spinal column, right? That's the Ida and Pingala, the interrelated serpents, but that's also the line of being. That's the Tao, the undulations that we were talking about. That's the S curve. That's the sound. The S, and the I is the E. C. C is yes, right? In Spanish and in other Latin languages. Well, in Spanish at least. So, and it is, right? C is. What is? What is? I am that I am is what is. See. See what is. See and is are the opposites of each other. That's that duality of that undulating up and down S-I, 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 S-I. C is, C is, C is, C, 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 C. So Centrist Democratic Progress Canada, its mandate is that basically all elected members, we will turn the House of Commons from a place of debate to a place of construction, to a place of cooperation, to a place where we will workshop and allow the citizenry of Canada to participate. Because have you ever wondered why the elected representatives of a country might be elected to represent the country, but then they start in Canada, the Prime Minister appoints members because we're a parliamentary democracy, we're not a republic. The Prime Minister chooses so-called cabinet ministers from the elected, the members of his party, and there's no guarantee that the individuals being chosen to be this cabinet minister or that cabinet minister responsible for this portfolio or that portfolio have any expertise or any experience, or in other words, any qualifications whatsoever to head that department. So there needs to be a way and a mechanism for knowledgeable individuals who are a member of that democracy with real insight and potential solutions to problems that the country faces, the other citizens face, to be able to serve the country by contacting their own elected officials, elected representatives. And or when they run for office, they should be running on the basis of, I'm not only running to be a member of parliament, but I'm also running to with the goal of having this portfolio, so when we run our elections, we should reconfigure everything around not just geography, but also functionality, also so that actual members of parliament are basically applying for a job, and the citizenry gets to vote on their qualifications or their ideas. If they're using C visual aids and bills are not read in the House of Commons, but they are presented using C visual aids so that everything can be clearly understood with zero misinterpretation and miscommunication and misunderstanding. and that the entire country can be walked through step by step by step. And the media's job, or at least we would have like the equivalent of a CPAC or whatever, to be able to show these in real time on the internet, so that individuals in the country can not only see these presentations in real time, but also contribute to them, give their input, give their feedback. And that, again, a society engaged electronic democracy, it may sound like it would be messy and convoluted and time consuming and all this stuff, but all you have to do is look at Wikipedia and recognize that there are precedents, there are ways for the world to get together on a platform and work together to produce something which is a consensus. And what we need to achieve is consensus in our governance. We don't need to be governed. We need to move forward together in a way that we can all agree upon, to one degree or another, without invoking any sort of tyranny of the majority and all that stuff. Because if you can show people the benefit, the universal benefit of what you're doing, and show them that, only unreasonable people would deny it. So if they're unreasonable people, they can't be reasoned with, well, then there's not much we can do. But for any reasonable person who has some modicum of awareness, and you can show them, then we have a basis for moving forward. And we can get rid of all of this division and tribalism and all that stuff. Our opponents are not our enemies. They're just our adversaries. We turn the House of Commons into a house of love, to a space of love, space of consensus building, and a place where we workshop and engage not just one another, but the entire country, the entire nation. The next circle around our journey here is social, environmental, economic value. So social, environmental, economics, CEV, or CV. This is this was a chapter in our book, which we put out. Well, we self-published this a number of years ago, and we had a chapter on Seconomics, and it was basically a chapter which was designed to. It was actually our master's thesis when we did our MBA. And it was a way to fix the fundamental flaw in capitalism. And that fundamental flaw, we won't walk you through that whole argument, but basically it's accounting for the intangible costs of business. So in commerce is out of balance, it's out of whack. Economics is out of whack on this planet because in the accounting system, we have accounted for the material costs, but we have not of the tangible costs, and we have accounted for the tangible value. We call it profit. And we account for we don't account for we account for the tangible cost and the tangible benefit, which is the physical material value of goods and services. And we have accounted for the intangible value. We call that profit. But we have not accounted for the intangible cost. In recent years, people have started to talk about these are externalized costs. And then they talk about triple bottom line accounting, et cetera, in an attempt to account for the externalized costs of commerce. We were writing about this 20 years ago. And the technology now exists with the blockchain technology to be able to account for the intangible costs of business and take these so-called externalized costs, put them back onto the balance sheet, so that every time you look at a product or service or company, it will have two numerical values. One numerical value will be its price, and the second numerical value will be its cost. Its cost to the planet. So when you pick up item A and it's 99 cents, but its cost is 300, and you pick up item B, which is $3, but its cost is 50, you can make an informed decision as a consumer. So I'm going to pay more for this because it's costing less. It costs the planet less. Less in terms of negative karma. It has less negative impact, less costs to the people and the planet. I'm willing to pay more for that. I'm willing to do my part. I'm willing to vote with my dollar for something which is cleaner, healthier, safer, more ethical, more compassionate, more kind, more loving. And so when we lower the cost, when we lower the intangible costs, and we reflect that in a tangible way, and we can do that right on the label of a product or with a QR code. Everybody has a QR scanner on their smartphone anyway. Then everybody can have access to all this information. So we can create a transparent economics, a conscious economics, a conscious commerce. See the real value, C value. You know, for generations, companies have been judging individuals based on their CV, their curriculum vitae. Now, customers will be able to judge companies and their products and services based on their CV, their C valuation. See the true value of the products and services you're buying. See the true value of the companies you're investing in, not just their stock price. That's just their tangible value, and even that is just an agreed upon value based on supply and demand in the market of the stock market. But what about the true, real value of that company in terms of what it's taking out of the earth, of the system, of its? So in other words, a measure of exploitation. And what we want to do is use a system like this, which is a C visual aid based, self-evident experiential knowledge based platform to create transparency and honesty and truth in economics, and trying to remove the corruption, because corruption always desires secrecy. It always wants to operate under the radar. So you want to lift the veil on all that, right? So this revelation is always about lifting the veil and shining the light. And that's what the Christ does. The Christ comes and it shines the light and it lifts the veil so that we can do the great reset and then reestablish the new humanity with the correct fail-safes in place. The new foundation, the strong foundation, the new covenant for the next humanity. The seventh and final Church of Asia, if you want to use that terminology, and we'll get to the Asia and stuff in a minute, because these are in macrocosmic expression of the microcosmic chakras. We have Vaisha Si. Vaisha Si. We shall see. We shall see. We shall see. Visha Si. Visionary, interactive, enlightened society, high art, and culture. So we'll just grab our highlighter here. No, we won't mark this up. Laser pointer. There, that's better. So visionary, interactive, enlightened society, high art, and culture. We're really talking about what we call here Attlas arts. We have to move away from this consumptive, content-oriented, content-driven mentality where we're constantly just pumping out entertainment, distraction, stuff for the mind to be, so that the mind won't be bored. All that empty, meaningless, worthless drivel, like all these streaming services that are just pumping out all this junk. It's all garbage. It's garbage for the mind. It's garbage for the heart. There's very little food for the soul to be found. There's some, but it's like finding a needle in a haystack. You have to sift through all these heaps and mounds of garbage just to get little nuggets and insights here and there. The next humanity on this planet will return to a place of true beauty and high art, and a society which values its culture and its ethics, and values beauty, true beauty, not aesthetics. We, as a child and growing up throughout our entire life, there is nothing we valued more than experiences that brought tears to our eye. Whether that experience was in nature, or listening to music, or watching a movie, or watching a play, or those moments where we were connected to that source of love, and as it filled our hearts and it flowed into us and through us, we were overwhelmed with the beauty and the joy which comes from that love, that light, and that ability to be one with that, and just that beauty. And that beauty oftentimes was in darkness. So when we watch, for example, film or theater or opera, why tragedy and tragic operas are such a high form of art is that they're not happy stories in the strictest sense. We're watching someone fall. But there is always a moment in those stories of redemption, of realization, of comprehension, where the character awakens and comprehends their tragic flaw, the cause of their suffering and the cause of the suffering of the kingdom. And there's this moment of reconciliation, of repentance, of rebirth, of renewal. And in those moments, and the experience of such moments in art, and so those connections to these universal truths and nuggets of beauty and eternal oneness and trueness, we can have these cathartic experiences. And Plato wrote about this, the catharsis in theater, where the audience can participate in purging itself of the same negativity that the performer on stage, the actor, the character on stage is living through. We can live vicariously. We can experience together with the character. And if we can be dragged through that experience in a virtual kind of way, in a virtual interactive simulation, we can learn about ourselves. We can learn about the nature of the world. We can learn about the nature of the universe. We can learn about the nature of God and how they're all one. We always were drawn to art and literature and theater and music, which touched us on the deepest and highest levels of our being. Entertainment and escapism and all this other stuff. Yeah, it was okay, but it was just junk food. It was just candy. There was no real nutrition in it. On our blog and some of our other videos, we have done extensive explorations of Star Wars and how Star Wars is a high mythology for our times. And we will continue that work moving forward and unveiling and pointing out how very often a lot of this pop culture stuff really is a kind of expression of high art. It's just veiled in archetypes and allegory and symbolism, and we're just too asleep to pay attention and realize what it is that we're really watching. I mean, the whole comic book phenomenon. Comic book heroes are very archetypal. They're all archetypal, and they harken back to the great myths of both Eastern and Western traditions, and Nordic traditions. And as of late, we've seen, like, some, for example, the Disney movie Moana, bringing to light Southern philosophical traditions, right? So these Southern archetypes and mythologies, and as Joseph Campbell, in his exhaustive work on the hero's journey, points out, the hero with 1,000 faces, that it's all just the hero's journey. This descent and ascent on the tree of life, this descent and ascent on Jacob's ladder, Dante's ladder. It's going around and around and around, and each time we descend and we ascend, we create the spiral vortex. And that grows our knowledge of self, and that grows our experience, our wisdom. As Sophia grows through that process, the alm of life, going around and around and around. So art, culture, society, dancing, for example, we have to bring dancing back, but real dancing. Real dancing, not this ecstatic dance of the new age, and not the bumping and grinding to the gangster rap, heavy beat music in the clubs, but real dancing. For example, the dances of the dervishes of Sufism, or the waltz, or those dances where either yourself or with a partner, you are becoming the beautiful harmonic dance of the Tao within yourself, and the push and the pull in this constant turning and turning and turning and turning and turning, which is why the Sufis just turn, and they turn and they turn and they turn, and in that state, they can achieve a truly ecstatic place, because they can, as they turn, they're actually, all of their chakras are turning, and they can go back into the center, into the very Tao itself. It takes years of practice for a Sufi to be able to become a master of that dance, and be able to turn for literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of revolutions without becoming dizzy, without passing out or whatever. From what we've seen of ecstatic dance, so-called ecstatic dance in the New Age, it's just ego. It's just chaos, right? There's a balance between the order and chaos, the movement and stillness. So there's a metaphysical science involved in that dancing, and with a partner who leads, who doesn't lead, and following steps and all that stuff. It's once you become good at dancing and you can feel your way through the music with your partner, you take turns leading. Someone still leads, but they know when to let go of the reins and let their partner take the reins. And it's this back and forth. It's this dance. It's this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and around and around and around, and each, certainly for a man who's leading a woman in a dance, if he's there to serve, and it's like, you know what? In this dance, I'm going to be like an amusement park ride, and I'm going to take my partner on a ride, on a trip. Let's go on a trip around the dance floor. That's why it's called tripping the light fantastic and whatnot. We have these expressions where we come together, and together we go on this journey. And it's a journey of motion and sound and harmony, and around the fulcrum of the 0 point, where we have the radiation and gravitation. As we turn around, there's forces pulling us apart, but then we hold each other tight. The gravitation and the love, especially if you're dancing with someone that you have deep feelings for, that's pushing you together, that's pulling you together. And this interplay, to be able to experience that and know that that's what you're experiencing, and be able to be in a conscious state while dancing. So we're not interested in ecstatic dance. We're interested in conscious dance, present. We're not interested in escapism. We're interested in penetration into what we're watching, into what we're doing, to be a part of it, to be united and one with it, and in doing so become united and one with the world around us. So that what we are engaging with contains these universal truths that were divinely inspired, and that engaging with that work of art expands the consciousness, expands the mind, and illuminates the mind. High art. It needs to return to the collective consciousness of humanity, and this notion of art for art's sake needs to be thrown out the window, because that's ego masturbation. It's masturbation. It's fine for an artist to suffer and have passion for their work, but are they just suffering and have passion for themselves? They're just getting their anger out or frustrations out or whatever onto the page or onto the score or onto the keyboard or onto the... Or are they doing it? Are they doing it consciously for the sake of others? And they might still suffer a lot and have passion for what they're doing. But again, it's a shift And the shift has to be going back to the self-evident experiential knowledge of self, of being, of the 0 point, of the center, of the absolute, of love, the space of love. And love is severity and mercy, yes, but love is also service, service to others. And finding a life of meaning and purpose is a life of service, service to others, service to the planet, service to humanity, service to animals, service to being of service to someone or something. And it doesn't matter what that service is. There are an infinite number of ways to serve. But bringing forth that which is in you and bringing from that emanates from your being, that love which is in your heart, and bringing it forth and allowing it to flow through you into the world is what makes life worth living. And everything else and all that, all that superfluous experience, everything else, if you do what you love, and then you will be satisfied in ways that no materialism or any other experience can satisfy, because eventually it'll all feel empty. Eventually you will have tried all the recipes, you will have eaten all the exotic foods, you will have traveled to all the exotic countries, you will have owned all the exotic cars and private jets, and you will have done all of the degenerate sexual acts imaginable and every sexual position under the sun, and and on and on and on and on and on it goes. And eventually you realize nothing satisfies anymore. Nothing eliminates the boredom. You become bored with everything, and eventually you reach a point where you realize, I have to give it away. I have to serve. The only thing that gives me true self-satisfaction is my ability to raise others up. And yeah, the ego is never satisfied, and that's what's the cause of that suffering, right? So you go deeper and deeper and deeper into hell, because no matter how much you gain, no matter how much you have, no matter how much, that expression, and Alexander wept, for there were no worlds left to conquer. This is where we're at with the world. We have no other worlds left to conquer, and this world has been conquered by ego. This humanity is now 99% ego. We have 1% consciousness left on this humanity. It's 99% ego, and that's why we're living in this time of confusion and chaos. So it's time for the great reset, and for the 1%, it's time for that 1% to work together. The 1% of us who are paupers, like ourselves, who are living a life of essentially poverty, but we are rich with gnosis. We are rich with knowledge. We are rich with the Christ, with the light. And we are here offering the archeon, and for anyone and everyone to come and join, to come and be a part of this, to come and bring and serve and participate, because we're just one man. We can't do this alone. We're talking about the salvation of a humanity. We're talking about Atlantis rising from the depths, because Atlantis sank, and Atlantis fell before it sank. And Atlantis sinking to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is a physical manifestation and expression of how Atlantis fell psychologically into hell, into ego. It's time, and we are back, Attlas. We've returned. together with the Christ, to perform the work that we've done before and raise this humanity up from hell and raise Atlantis up from the depths and renew the next round, renew and reconcile with the 1%, the so-called 1%, the elite, that the internet is so enamored with hating them and despising them and being envious of them. We don't hate or despise or judge or be envious of them. We recognize that they suffer. They're in hell with all their money and all their power and all their influence and all their traditions and all their everything else and all their secret societies and all their schemes and plots and ploys, and they are completely and totally and utterly consumed and possessed by the demon of fear and the demon of desire. We know that intimately because we came into this world likewise possessed by that demon. And we wrote about it extensively in our article on fear. Which is, it's hardly an article, it's practically a book. We wrote 80,000 words on the nature of that demon. But we've overcome that demon. We've recognized what fear is and what its purpose was in our life and what its purpose is in the planet. And even though with COVID and everything else, this world is gripped by fear, fear is the mountain that we have to overcome. But in overcoming that mountain and climbing that mountain, we find within ourselves great courage. But one of the great things we do when we overcome fear is we overcome fear of the other. And when we overcome fear of the other, then ion and archon can come together and be as one again. This is the great truth, which is revealed in the original movie, The Dark Crystal, the original one by Jim Henson, when 1,000 years ago, the crystal cracked and the mystics and the Skeksis appeared. And they've been a conflict for all these years, but then this little gelfling has to find the crystal shard. And he talks to Aughra, the Divine Mother, and she explains to him that he has to take the crystal shard. He's a shard of the crystal, and heal the crystal. We have to heal ourselves. We, the crystal shard, must become one with the crystal again. We are just a shard of the whole. And if we reunite with the whole, then the Skeksis and the mystics come together and reunite, and the angelic beings are born again on the planet. And humanity, the whole of humanity, is Christified. If only but 1% of the population reunites their inner archons and ions and reunites and reintegrates, we now fully comprehend what Carl Jung was talking about when he talked about the integration of the shadow self. All it will take is 1% of the world population to become reintegrated and to find that balance in their own inner Tao, in their own innermost being, and receive the cosmic Christ in perfect balance and perfect love of severity and mercy within ourselves. But if we can overcome that fear, if we can overcome the fear, then we overcome the fear of the other. And if we have to overcome the fear of our own egos and recognize that they are not our enemy, they are just our opponent. And my opponent is my friend because I'm playing this game of chess with them. And what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is so essential and so necessary because only those who have overcome their fear and fear of death and fear of destruction and fear and only those who have let go of their attachments and identifications, only those will be able to endure what is to come. Because psychologically, people are going to go mad in the end times, in the Kali Yuga, right? So we're in the middle game. Everything is so convoluted and complicated. But for the two sides to get to the end game, they have to start sacrificing pieces and taking pieces and everything else. If you're too attached to your pieces, you won't be able to make the sacrifices you need to make. You won't be able to trade the pieces you need to trade off. And you will become flustered, and you will become upset, and you will lose your concentration. You'll become nervous and tense, and your mind will become racing, and then you'll start making mistakes and making moves, and you'll lose the game. There's too much at stake. We have no enemies. And anyone who opposes us in any way, shape, or form, mentally, emotionally, philosophically, it doesn't matter. They're welcome to come, and we can show them how we can get further together than we can separate. What's that silly expression? The word team. Team, together, everyone achieves more. Together, everyone achieves more. And we are all one. And to awaken to that truth, without drugs, without psychedelics, without any of that stuff, you need to be able to awaken to that truth without psychedelics and without substances, because it needs to be objective truth. You need to know that and feel that and be that and live that. You need to be the Tao, a living, breathing, incarnated, manifested expression of the Tao, objective recognition of the light and the truth and the Aum of life in all phenomenon, not just while you're on a substance and then afterwards thinking, oh yeah, well, I know that because I had this experience. But you are the experience. Every waking moment of your life is that experience. From the most mundane to the most spectacular, it doesn't matter. It's all one singular truth. The Aum of life expressing itself, spiraling outward into the holographic fractal universe. And you are an essential spark of that innermost all spark, the being at the heart of everything. But you need to know that here and now, like you feel your own hands, you feel your beingness in those hands. And you feel, then you know, like Einstein said, I want to know God's thoughts. Well, we've shown you some of them, at least, to the degree that we're able to at present. This is a process. This is Attlas information, and you are all invited to participate. Meditate. Take a piece of paper and a pen. Take a protractor and a compass, or a compass and a protractor and a ruler. When we show you things like this, read this page, read this meme out loud to yourself. Iaum Hamesia. Use the science of sound to your own benefit. Use it to the benefit of others. Share this with others. Invite others to come and join us and participate and listen and share. Share. We don't own any of this. This is not copyrighted. No one can steal that which is not owned. We have no attachments. This is not ours. The Attlas project is not mine. I was born Attila, Attila. Actually, you'll notice that our in the chat, if we type this, that's what we were born as. Attila. Oops. Wow, it's amazing. You're starting to get tired when you forget your own name. Okay, we were born Attila Louis Lenvi. That's our initials, all ALL. But if you take Attila's project, well, by the way, you should be looking at the chat right now, and you can see what we're typing here in the chat. If you take Attila's project and you remove the I and the apostrophe, that is, if you take away the ego and the attachment, the ego identification and attachment. So if you take out of Attila's project and you subtract the ego, the I, and not just the one eye, but the many eyes. But we'll just check out the one eye, the ego and the attachment. The apostrophe is attachment, right? What you get is and you can see that in the chat. If you take Attila's project and you eliminate the I, the identification, and you eliminate the attachment, you're left with Attlas project. It's our project. It's all of ours. It's not mine. It's an arc. We are building the arc, but not just the arc, the archeon, the archaion, which means there is space on our arc for White Lodge, Black Lodge, but only those who are able to let go of their attachments to these monikers and these religions. The religion of light and the religion of dark, the Luciferianism or whatever. If you can let go of your attachment and let go and return to your being, your beingness, the great I am that I am within, and abandon your fear of the other side. And the global elite, the 1% who are spending billions of dollars and launching rockets up into space because they're in now a commercial space race, and they're building gigantic explosive phallic symbols and shooting them up into space, and that's all a failure. It's a ridiculous failure, because if they had any sense of the power of sound, and if they had sound empowered ethical metaphysical science, they could discover that gravity is present in the 0 point, and therefore, and so is anti-gravity. That radiation and gravity are two opposing potentialities in the ether, in the fourth dimensional vortex science of Walter Russell, and that in comprehending the flow of these potentialities under the actual fabric of physical reality in the ether, in the electric universe, we won't need explosions anymore. We won't need engines that explode physical things, and we won't need rockets that explode hydrogen fuel to shoot themselves into. We can use the inverted potentiality to pull against the force of gravity, and we'll be able to pull ourselves forward like a brook trout rockets itself up through the water. How? By creating a vortex in front of its mouth, and the vortex in front of its mouth, the water vortexes into its mouth and then exits through the gills and down across its body, and that vortex, is negative vortex, with which it can hold itself against the stream of the water. And then when it wants to rocket upstream, it doesn't do that by flipping its tail. It does that simply by expanding its mouth and increasing the size of the vortex, so that negative pressure is greater than the flow of the water, and it's able to rocket itself up through the water because of that vortex that it's creating in front of it. So in the future, the flying machines on this planet will work on this phenomenon, and that recognizing that the fabric of reality is electric and fourth dimensional, to forward momentum, upward momentum, lifting heavy things. There is no mass. There is no heaviness but that which is in our mind. If you can eliminate heaviness from your mind, you will eliminate heaviness from the world. You will overcome the concept and dogma of heaviness, of mass, of it's too heavy or it's too big, because three-dimensional reality is an illusion. When you're playing an MMO RPG, when you're playing a video game, and you have Mario and he's jumping up and down the screen, does Mario have any mass? Is there any mass in the Super Mario game? Unless the game has pre-programmed physics, but they're just pre-programmed physics. Is there any mass in the video game that you're playing? Even if you put on a virtual reality helmet and you're manipulating things in 3D space, is there mass there? It's all electric. It's all virtual. It's all just vibrations on a matrix. So we need to, in the science of the future, and so all that global elite who are struggling against what they're struggling against and trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve, it's time for them to take a break, step back, come and unite. For the archons and the aeons to come and unite, and the archaeon recognize that it's time for arc building, and it's time for discarding that which no longer serves humanity, and reinvigorating and renewing, and putting what two things go into the ark: the seeds with which you plant the next humanity, and the teachings, the foundation, the covenant with which that humanity sets forth from to begin again and reestablish itself in the new civilization and the new golden age. So, and there's room for, well, the more souls come and bring their capabilities and abilities and resources to bear on building the ark, the more capacity it will have to serve. The more space, the more room will be on that ark. And that's just on a very practical level. So this is our message delivered here on September 1st, which is Labor Day, regardless of what your calendars say about what Labor Day is. It's the first of the 9th month, because we know the importance of 9, and we know it's the beginning. And September, October, November, 3 months' time is the time that the Christ has in hell. 3 days and 3 nights. Well, it's 3 months. The last time the Christ descended into hell and resurrected was December, astronomically, it was December 25th. So we will continue this work, Attlas Information, up until sometime between November 24th and to the end of November, December 1st. So sometime up until November 24th to the 1st of December will be a kind of a new Holy Week, and our individual personal drama as the messenger of Christ will play out during that time. And because we are one with all and we are all one, it is our hope that all of you will undergo and experience that Holy Week for yourself, and that you will take the time here in hell to do the work, to free yourself and others from identification and attachment to everything which keeps this humanity trapped in hell, trapped in the ego. So it's these 3 months we will keep hammering home this message, and we will keep refining it and refining it and refining it as polishing a diamond, or as an oyster creating the pearl, the perfect pearl. We will keep going over it and over it and over it. Are those incredible sculptors working with marble who are able to turn marble into flesh and give marble. There's this incredible sculptor, we forget their name, who has sculpted the Virgin Mary, and what with like this silk veil over her, and this sculptor has turned marble into like fabric and silk, and how do you turn stone into silk? It's like turning lead into gold. It's this transmutation. This is the type of work that we're doing in ourselves, and what we're actually doing with our message, and what we're doing with our work with this PowerPoint presentation, and which we will also be working on putting into words and putting into a book form as we arrive at a workable union between the visualizations and that are animated, and put them into a form that they can also be still and put on the page. We're going to continue moving forward with our work for this humanity, and because the time is fast approaching for humanity to die and be born again, and it's very possible that it's in the next 3 months, but certainly for ourselves individually, we are looking at that timeline. However, it could also be that it's the next 30 years and not 3 months, or it's the next 3 years, not 3 months, but 3 years. It could also be that it's the next 30 years, and that we have to live out the remainder of our lives here in hell before the Great Reset comes. But the Great Reset is coming, whether it's 3 months, 3 years, or 30 years from now, or 3 decades. The Great Reset is coming. Make no mistake. And it's better to be prepared for it than unprepared. And it's better to let go of your attachments now than it is to find yourself in the last minute scrambling because you haven't prepared yourself, you haven't done the work, the great work. And we will be working on, as best as we can, we will be working on manifesting all that you see here, because as you can see, we have entities which are working towards each one of these spheres. So, for example, on the we perhaps didn't show that, but here on the science side, we have Genesis Eco Fund and Attlas Information. Genesis is the not-for-profit organization that we created to educate the world about the benefits of ecosystem. So these two spheres, and Peapod Life and Genesis, are directly related. But then we also have Attlas Information. So we have what we're doing right now to sort of help give a foundation. But then there's lots of other things which we are going to be adding to this. So, for example, whenever we can, we're going to do things like pull in Walter Russell and his work, and show how that contributes, and we are going to keep building this out. Again, we're building the archeon, and the archeon has to be built metaphysically first in order to manifest in the world. We have to comprehend and understand it, and then as individuals, we have to self-realize and realize its source within ourselves, and then we will be able to bring it forth and manifest it in the world, and make it a reality as part of the reset, part of the renewal and the reconciliation process. And reconciliation is really important here. Be able to forgive yourself and forgive others, because the forgiveness of sins is dependent upon individuals relinquishing their attachments and demands for retribution. So let go, right? It's let go and let God time, right? And to achieve peace is to shift into a place of allowance and acceptance, and be a human being done. Allow your being to work with you and through you. Work with your being cooperatively, like a sheepdog works with the shepherd. Now is the time for that loyalty to our innermost, and recognize that if we have an angry barking dog, that the angry barking dog is there because it's raising our awareness to that which we need to be aware of, but not afraid of. We shouldn't be afraid of the angry barking dog. It's our dog. Our fear is ours. It's our dog. He might be barking, but we know it. If we're smart, we're not afraid of the dog. We just, why is the dog barking? Why is this fear afraid? What is it trying to make me aware of? And you realize that the barking dog is your dog. It's barking in service to you. It's making you suffer, because think of it this way. If you're fast asleep at night and there's a danger and a burglar is trying to get into your house, your dog starts barking at 3 a.m., what's going to happen? You're going to wake up. Your dog will have alerted you to the danger. The fear alerts you to the danger and makes you aware of the danger that's happening in the moment if you are asleep. If you're awake and you're conscious, you don't need the barking dog. You don't need the fear anymore, because you're awake and you're conscious and you're aware of the danger. But if you're asleep, then you need the dog to alert you to the danger. And it's going to bark. But after it's barked and woken you up, if you remain afraid of your own dog, what sort of household are you going to? What sort of, can you be peaceful? Can you be at peace? Can any dog owner be at peace if they're afraid of their dog? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. We have to comprehend why fear exists. So this COVID thing is making everybody afraid, and it's created from fear because the elite are afraid of the population of the planet. So they created COVID and all this control mechanism to try to control humanity. But that fear is there to alert us. The elite need to be alerted to the fact that the gig is up. The Black Lodge needs to be alerted to the fact that their reign is coming to an end. The game, we're in the end game. The game is coming to an end. The fear is not there to try to preserve and hold on to the game. Remember, the game is a chess game. When the game is over, the game is over. Checkmate is coming. And either we agree to end the game and clear off the board and start again. We call it a draw. And clear off the board and start it again. We do that consciously together, working together. Or we get right to the end and someone loses and someone wins and maybe someone smacks the board over. They fight it out to the bitter end. We don't want to fight it out to the bitter end. Why not recognize that it was a good game, and we've taken it as far as we're willing to take it, and now it's time to reset the board. So the fear that the reason why the world is gripped by fear is because the barking dog within us is trying to alert us to the fact, the sleeping humanity is trying to alert the sleeping humanity to the fact that the real danger is coming, and the real danger is the death of humanity itself. It's just alerting us to death, but we don't have to fear death. We just have to be aware of it and prepare ourselves for it. And to prepare ourselves for death is to die before we die. To prepare this humanity for death is for this humanity to die psychologically and to build the ark, the archaion, psychologically, mentally. And because manifestation requires visualization. And we have the visualization of our ecosystems and our best community, and it's all about giving to the world now, here in hell, living in hell in the darkness, and showing them what can be, and what the next root race might look like, and what we can look forward to, and what the arc is. And as best as we can, show how at the heart of it all is the Alm of life, the eternal Tao, the dance. And so, let's everybody prepare for the big dance. The big dance. And it's a dance that we'll all perform together. And everyone's welcome to the dance. We hope that you've gotten something of value from this presentation, which realistically, we will be rebroadcasting this at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, because we have to be cognizant of our own limitations here in physical form, and the energy that is required to be able to do this. And we did 3 hours last night, and now 3 hours today, 3.5 hours actually. We're going on a 3.5 hour mark. So with that, like we said, as soon as we're finished recording this, as soon as we're able to, we're going to schedule a rebroadcast for today. And we might do this in the future from now on, where we record at noon, and then rebroadcast the same day at 8 p.m. However, the other option is just record live at 8 p.m. like we usually do, and then the recording is available online. It just won't be live. we should be able to, if we rebroadcast. We haven't done this. This is an experiment. It's the first time for everything. So if we rebroadcast tonight, we're not sure if we can participate in the chat or how that chat works or anything else. So we'll have to see how that goes. And we don't know if it rebroadcasts the chat or if you can chat, or we'll have to see how all this works. But in any case, it's a 3 hour and 30-minute mark. And before it goes to 3:31, we're going to say adieu, inferential peace, and much love. And we will see you again. And we will just keep an eye on our Facebook, or we'll let you know when our next live stream will be happening.